And I'll make this bold statement. I don't care what practice area you're in. There is a way to unlock $1 million in revenue as a minimum per attorney. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and today we're going to be doing a solo episode. This is the second episode in a series of 5 episodes where I'm talking about what it's going to take for you to have the most transformative year for yourself in 2026. The last episode that I recorded, we talked about mindset. We talked about the concept of understanding how you need to think about your business, how you need to approach your business from an investor mindset, from a business owner mindset. We talked about how you need to begin with the end in mind, and you need to approach the structure of your business from where you want to end up. Right? So we want to figure out, what is this future 12 months from now? What does that month look like? What is the revenue? What is the team? What does all of that look like? And then we build it backwards from there. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the levers. So business is built off of leverage. When you start your business, and if you start it without capital, you started with just you, sweat equity, your leverage is your own time. That is your leverage. Your own time doesn't leverage very well. Money leverages better, but other people's time leverages tremendously, right? And the key to success in business and growth over time is to understand that ultimately the essence of the business is that you're leveraging other people's time, you're leveraging other people's money to get bigger and better results. And what ends up happening is that through that leverage, we create exponential opportunities that we didn't have before. If you're motivated by just helping more people, you can help a lot more people if you have 3 attorneys on your staff than if it was just you. And that's obvious, but we need to state it, right? Because what is the purpose of this growth? At some point, you've achieved the financial success that you want. At some point, you've achieved the level of success that you want, but there's still more, right? Because there's a higher purpose to what you're doing, and it's not just the finances, it's not just the money. If it was just the money, you might not even want to practice law. You might want to do something else, right? Like, there's a lot of opportunities out there to make money. You could become a 7-Eleven franchise owner and make $1 million a year owning a 7-Eleven. Now, I'm not encouraging you to do that, but the point is that there is a motivating factor to this. There is a motivator for you doing this, and we have to understand what that is so that we're heading on the right path, the right journey, and we understand why we're doing the things that we're doing. But there is another lever in this leverage game, and that lever is what you charge for the work that you do. What is the price that you're going to have people pay to work with you? And this is interesting, and we're going to start this conversation with examples of the billable hour. And the reason I do that is because it helps me set the stage for understanding the problem that we're trying to solve in leveraging the value of what we are selling to our clients, right? But I am not a fan of the billable hour. I think it's a very poor business model for law firms in general. Now, there are exceptions to every rule, and there are exceptions to that, but most businesses would accelerate and do much better if they could figure out how to change their model away from the hourly model. Now, I did an episode very early on in the starting of this podcast. So back in 2019, I did an episode called The Death of the Billable Hour. And I went into a lot of the reasons why the billable hour is not a great business model. Not really where I want to focus today, but some of the stuff's going to come up in the conversation anyway. But when we look at how you position the services that you provide and how you position it to clients, I want you to understand that alternative fee arrangements, whether it be a flat fee, whether it be a subscription, whether it be contingent on the result, that's not something I have to kind of convince you on, because the practice areas where it's allowed, most people are doing that anyway. So if you're in, litigation for injury or some sort of, employment situation, or Social Security and disability, a lot of those are already contingency based, where basically the attorney is going to do the work, and if you don't get a positive result for you, the attorney is going to eat that, right? And if you do get a positive result, the attorney is going to get paid. Now, contingency only makes sense if you're going to unlock a higher fee than you would have potentially got otherwise, right? Now, in personal injury, there's no other way to do it because everybody's doing that. So why would somebody front the money when they can have you carry that, right? But it's also the one area where you're getting a percentage of the payout. In a lot of these other areas, so for example, let's say, Social Security and disability, or those types of things where you're making a claim for somebody, often those are limited to a certain amount per hour of the work that was put in. Now, usually you can unlock a greater hourly rate than you might have been able to charge otherwise, but it might not be enough. So we have to look at the underlying result of that model as well. But if we take contingency and move it to the side, right? We have flat fee and we have subscription based, and there's different things that these work well with, and we'll talk about that. But what's more important is understanding why you should be trying to unlock more from the value of what's possible from the attorneys that you hire. And if you're a solo practitioner, just approach this conversation from the lens of, what if I were to hire somebody, I would hire an attorney to do work on my staff. Even if I'm not there yet, I need to play the game, because we tend to undercut our value because it's us doing the work. So it's interesting because really, like, if you have 10 attorneys on your staff, you would treat yourself as the big honcho. You would treat yourself as the senior partner, and you would charge more than everyone else for your time, right? But when it's just you as a solo, we tend to not think about that or look at that, and not look at ourselves as the head honcho. And instead we say, what is the least that I could charge to be able to feel like I can compete with my competition and I can get clients? And maybe you even feel guilty charging more than that. There's a lot of mindset things around that as well. But what ends up happening is that solo practitioners tend to undercharge what they're worth by significantly. And it's only when they end up hiring somebody that they finally realize that amount is not going to make sense, and they need to raise their rates out of necessity, rather than where it should be. And what ends up happening is that you end up looking and questioning, like, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? Why am I doing this now? Imagine how easy life would have been if I had done this 10 years ago. So this is something that you constantly want to be questioning, you constantly want to be looking at. It is a leverage point in your business, but we also want to put on a different lens. We want to think of it a different way, because maybe the entire model of how we charge for our services is broken or is not working. I talked a lot of theory. Let's turn it into numbers. Okay? Let's look at it this way. I'm going to give you a kind of a basis for this, okay? For any attorney working on your staff, for you to have a profitable business within normal profit guidelines, meaning that you're producing a healthy profit from the business, not that you're eking by, you have to have a minimum of 5 times the salary of your attorney as the revenue coming into the firm. Minimum. So if you pay an attorney $80,000 a year, you have to have a minimum of $400,000 in revenue coming in from that attorney's work. If you are paying an attorney $120,000, you need a minimum of $600,000 in revenue coming in. And I'll make this bold statement. I don't care what practice area you're in. There is a way to unlock $1 million in revenue as a minimum per attorney. $1 million in revenue as a minimum per attorney. And if we turn that back into an hourly rate, let's look at what that looks like. Okay. So let's just say $1 million is where we're at. And $1 million is not just a stretch, right? Because the reality is that we all make the mistake. And if you're looking to hire your first attorney, you're going to try to hire the least expensive person. So you're going to try to hire somebody with minimal experience, coming straight out of school, or they have experience in a different practice area and they're coming over. They're maybe not the best employee. And that is not what you should be doing with your first hire. Your first hire should be somebody who's really good at what they do, who's able to take your files off your plate immediately, who's able to be up and running within 6 weeks, maybe two to 3 months max. But they're executing and they're running. And we're going to do a separate episode on staffing, so we'll cover the math on this in that episode. But there's a lot of mathematical proof that that's what you should be doing. That being said, so let's say you do bring somebody in who's highly experienced in your practice area. Let's say that they don't cost $10,000 a month. Let's say they cost $15,000 a month, right? So $15,000 a month translates into $180,000 a year times 5 is $900,000. So $900,000 is the number that we need in order to pay somebody $15,000 a month, right? So let's just assume that you can do that. You can get them to $900,000 a month, a year, right? Which divided by 12 is $75,000 a month, right? So 900,000 is your magic number. Now let's play a game. How many productive hours does an attorney on your staff have available to them? Now we can argue whether a productive day should be 5, 6, 7, or 8 hours. I think that we would all agree that if you're not running a business where you're slave driving your people, then 8 hours is off the table, right? Most people are going to have some sort of downtime or unproductive time just checking on emails, distractions that come up, right? Then there's potty breaks and snack breaks, and then there's a lunch break. And, so when we start adding all that stuff together, you're probably not getting more than 6 productive hours that are billable in a given day. I think it's probably closer to 5 is the real number, but let's run the math for both. So now another assumption I'm going to make is that we're dealing with 47 weeks in the year, because you probably have 2 weeks in total of holiday days that you're closed, and you probably have 2 weeks of vacation and a week of sick. So if we take 5 weeks off the table, that's 52 weeks minus 5 is 47 weeks. So we have 47 weeks of productive time, right? So if I take 5 hours a day times 5 days a week times 47 weeks, that gives us 1,175 billable hours in a year. If I take 6 hours a day times 5 days times 47 weeks, that gives us 1,410. So 1,175, 1,410, that's our range of billable time. Let's use 1,410. Let's use the higher number. If we do 900,000 for our attorney divided by 1,410, it comes out to $638 an hour. Now, I don't know about you, but I imagine that probably 90% or more of our listeners, even if you're billing hourly, are not billing at least $638 an hour. Now, for all the reasons I don't like hourly billing, if you are billing that or more, congratulations, because you are effectively getting the value of your attorneys as long as you're not paying your attorneys more than $180,000 a year. But if you use this 5X rule and you make sure that the hourly rate is at least 5 times their salary, then you're okay, right? Like that lever is working. The problem is that most people are not here. Most people who should be at $638 an hour are charging $325 or $350 or $425 or $450. So taken another way, let's just say you're at $400 an hour. So $400 an hour times 1,410 is $564,000. Now, if you're paying $180 for your person, 500 and you're paying and you're collecting $560,000, that's 32% of their salary. That's going to of the revenue that they generate. It's going to their salary. Which, by the way, as a fractional CFO working with many multiple $1 million businesses, law firms, I can tell you that you will never unlock a healthy 30 to 40% profit margin if you're giving away a third of revenue to your attorney. So, and I've been in these Facebook groups where people post, they're like, hey, what is a good performance compensation for my attorney? And people are sharing these rules of thumb that they've heard and they've implemented. And some of them are saying that you should give a third of the revenue to the attorney. And I think that you're absolutely insane if you do that. Now, from a perspective of a business owner, a perspective of an investor in your business. Now, if you want to give away all that money and try to figure out how to eke by without, you can do that. But let me open your eyes a little bit, okay? Marketing in a good business that is run well costs 15% of revenue. Many businesses are operating closer to 25% of revenue in marketing. But let's just say it's 15. So you have 15% for marketing. Now, if you have the rest of your support staff besides for the attorney, let's say that they're also 15%. So we 15 plus 15. Then you're paying your attorney, let's just say the 32 we just said, 32%. And then you have overhead, which let's say that's 10%. 72% of your business is going to your attorney's salary, your marketing, your overhead, and your support staff. And that leaves you with 38% profit margin. Well, actually 28% profit margin. And 28% profit margin is not terrible, but it's not 30 to 40%. And the reality is that chances are one of those things that I just shared is wrong. Either your support staff is higher, your marketing is higher, your overhead is higher, or they're all higher. These typically businesses will come to me in the 4 million revenue or above range on the CFO side, and they're only making 10% profit, and they want to know why. And it's often because you're overpaying your attorneys. Often, not always, but often. So that's something that needs to be rectified, needs to be solved. Okay. Coming back to the pricing conversation, if we have to unlock $638 an hour, and you're not in certain areas in the country like New York City or the Bay Area in California or LA, and you can't justify prices that high, you have to package it differently so that it doesn't sound like $638 an hour. Now, I will give you some examples with regular practice areas, and we'll start with just flat fee, okay? So let's talk about estate planning, right? In estate planning, there's a process that happens with a client. There's an initial meeting generally where we decide what they need, and often the attorney is present for that. We actually can build this out where the attorney is not needed for most of the things I'm going to share, but let's assume that they are, right? So let's assume that they have to be there for that first meeting, and that meeting is 2 hours. And then they have a paralegal or somebody on the team that does the drafting of the plan and getting the paperwork from the client, all that stuff. And they're reviewing the draft, making changes, and getting it ready for a signing ceremony. Let's say that's an hour. And then we have the signing ceremony itself, which is another hour. So an estate plan has, not conservatively, like being generous, has 4 hours of attorney time. Now, if you can charge $4,000 for an estate plan with a trust, and many of my clients are charging $4,500, $5,500 for that, right? So let's just say it's $4,000, and you're putting 4 hours into it. That's $1,000 an hour. You've unlocked $1,000 an hour for your attorney. So by simply charging a flat fee for that, an estate plan is not a stretch because most people are charging a flat fee for that. If you can charge a flat fee for that, you're unlocking a superior hourly rate than you would be able to get if you were to just charge hourly. I'll give you another example. Let's say criminal defense, DUI. Good criminal defense firms are able to charge for a DUI something around $5,500. Now, you probably have 1 or 2 court appearances and maybe some client conversations that have to happen, right? So let's just call each court appearance a 4-hour block, right? So you have 2 court appearances is 8 hours. You have a couple of conversations. You're talking about 9 hours. You spend 9 hours on the case. 5,500 divided by 9. That's $611 an hour. Tight, but it's there. It's $638, right? Like close enough. So that is another example. So we're using different practice areas to show you that you can do this. Bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is the lowest margin business in law, right? But if you could charge $3,000 for a bankruptcy, which I believe you can, the only thing the attorney is needed for is the actual court time at the end of the bankruptcy. Everything else is gathering documents, going through filings, right? Like, and all that stuff can be support staff. So you're talking about, I mean, and if you've got volume, you're going to be there for multiple clients. So you're not even spending all the time for that one client. But let's say that you are 3 hours. 3 hours of attorney time committed to this client. $3,000 for the bankruptcy. 3 hours. That's $1,000 an hour. We can go on and on all day, but the moment that you package it into a flat fee, what ends up happening is the client, you're no longer telling the client to turn that number into hours. They're not doing that math. This is what it costs. This is the investment. This is what I charge to do this service. Take it or leave it. And by giving a flat fee, you're essentially moving them away from thinking of you as worth something per hour, which is something the legal industry made their own bet in, right? The legal industry created this problem. And the reality is that it's not fair or indicative to what the true business is behind the attorney, right? You have an office with rent. You have electric bills. You have insurance. You have a support staff. You have marketing costs, right? None of those things are things that you can pass to the client. It's all buried in your rate per hour. And people are viewing it as what you're making per hour, right? Like, they don't think about the fact that all those things are covered in that dollar amount, which is why you have this barrier, because there's this mental barrier of what somebody's going to think that you're worth when you give them an hourly rate. But when you package it together in a different way and you say, here's what we're going to do for you, here's the deliverables, here's the desired outcome, which we either can guarantee or not, depending on what area of law you're in, and we're going to do our best shot at getting there, and this is what we charge for that, and this is how you pay for it, it becomes so much easier to get clients to sell them, and it allows you to unlock that higher rate. Additionally, if you're charging by the hour, the attorney has to be the one doing the work. When you charge a flat fee, you can delegate as much as possible away from the attorney. So you're motivated to get stuff off the attorney's desk. So that's flat fee, and if you take your practice and turn it into flat fee or another alternative fee arrangement, which I'm going to share a subscription in a moment, that is going to be the weapon or the piece that's going to allow you the leverage to unlock $1,000 an hour, so somewhere between $600 and $1,000 an hour, which will allow you to generate at least $900,000 in revenue for this attorney who you're paying $15,000 a month. Now, this is like a broad example. You might not be paying $15,000 a month. You might not have as big a hill to climb. Or what if you could unlock $1,000 an hour for an attorney and you're paying them $10,000 a month? What if instead of 5xing what you're paying them, they're now worth $1.5 million in revenue, and they're only costing you $120,000, and you're 10xing what they're worth, right? They're costing you 10%. You get to be the recipient of that leverage, right? You get to take that extra money, and either you're going to right size your life, or you're going to put it back into the business, or you're gonna or you'll channel it to another area where you're not as efficient. So maybe you're able to leverage the attorney's time that way, but in marketing, you haven't figured out how to get 15% of revenue, and it's costing you 30% of revenue. So you now have the extra 15% that you could pull 10 of it from this attorney's salary, and you got to find the other 5 somewhere else. So navigating this and getting away from the billable hour so that you can unlock, $1 million a year per attorney at a minimum is the way to go. And that is going to give you leverage. So if you're currently billing hourly, or if you're currently undercharging, not charging enough for your flat fee. Here's the other thing. So we didn't talk about this. So if you're not charging enough for your flat fee, and before I continue, I'm going to get back to this moment and to this thought in just a moment. We're doing a 2-day in-person workshop where we're going through basically everything we're covering in this 5-episode series on the podcast, but hands-on, helping you to create your plan, your strategy. And what that is going to do is it's going to give you the instruction manual that you need for the next 12 months to get your business to $100,000 a month. So if you are trying to get to $100,000 a month, if that's the journey you're on, and you haven't been able to figure that out yourself, and you want help, that is something that we do with our clients. And we have a 2-day workshop where we're going to walk you through exactly how to do that and help you to formulate the exact plan for your business, so that when you leave, you not only have the plan, but you have the action steps. You know exactly what action you need to take when you get back to the office and you get back to business. So if that sounds like something that's of interest to you, if that sounds like something you want to join, you want to go to this URL, but you want to do it now. The reason is because we're discounting seats at various times for the event, and those discounts are expiring and they are never to be seen again. So if you want to get the absolute best price of admission, that best price is right now when you're listening to this, not tomorrow or the day after. Go to profitwithlaw.com/LFG 2026, profitwithlaw.com/LFG 2026, and you'll find out all the details of this workshop, and you can sign up there. So if you are already doing flat fee, it is possible that you are not charging enough. It is possible that you're undercharging, and because of that, you're not able to unlock 5x or more of your attorney's salary. Or you can't justify hiring an attorney because there isn't enough money to be made to do that. For example, let's say that you're doing estate planning, and instead of charging $4,500 per plan, you're charging $1,500. We've had clients come in that are doing that, charging $1,500 per plan. Well, if we said that it's 4 hours of attorney time per plan, you take $1,500 divided by 4, that's $375 an hour. That's not going to get you there, right? So there is a leap that needs to happen if you're undercharging in your flat fee business. And there's 2 ways to increase your price. One is to do it incrementally, and the second is to just jump to where you want to be. Now, let me tell you why you want to do number 2 and not number 1. Number 1 is for people who are afraid. So you have fear. And what you're afraid of is that if you raise your price, people are going to start saying no. So the sales conversations you're having are converting at a certain rate. Say you're converting at 50%. You think that if you raise your price, that you're going to convert at 25% instead of 50%. You're afraid of losing that business. And because of that, you're afraid to jump in pricing, and you're willing to stay stuck or to do it slowly or incrementally, where it might take you a few years to get to where you need to be, depending on how far off you are. Or you can just jump to where you know you need to be. So we can get there with math. We can figure out how many hours per client is the attorney spending, and we want to unlock, say, $1,000 an hour. So we multiply those number of hours times 1,000. That's where our price needs to be, right? Now, if that number is too big that you just can't wrap your head around it, then we got to think, maybe we can look at subscription. Maybe that's an option. So we're going to talk about subscription shortly. That's a way of lowering the total number that you're sharing, and making it something that's more palatable if it feels like a stretch or feels big to you. So if you jump to the new price, you're going to find out if you have a drop-off in sales pretty quickly, be able to do the math of what that drop-off is, and 9 times out of 10, or even more, 99 times out of 100, I will tell you that you either don't see a drop-off, or the drop-off is not significant enough that you're still ending up with more revenue and just less work, right? So I don't care if our close rate goes down by 10%. If we raised our price high enough where now I'm working with 10% less people and I'm generating more revenue from it. I've solved two problems, right? I've increased capacity naturally, and I've increased revenue. So jumping forward is going to do that, and the second thing is it's going to set you up for success on day one, right? Because what does the price increase do for you? It gives you the money that you need to be able to invest in marketing, to be able to invest in team, to be able to grow your business. So if you're not charging enough, the result of that is that you're running an operation that doesn't have enough cash to be able to grow. It might not even have enough cash to be able to sustain your day-to-day. So solving this problem is solving that. And why would we want to take 3 years to step into that? I'd much rather do it right away, find out if I went too far. And I'll tell you one more caveat, and that is when you implement it, you've got to run it for a period of time. You got to run it for enough sales conversations where you get comfortable with the price, you get comfortable with what you're charging, and you also are statistically significant. Meaning if your close rate was 50% and you can go 10 meetings with no sales and then 10 meetings where everybody bought, you've got to have 20 meetings in order to prove whether or not this changed, right? So those are some caveats in how you measure it or look at it. So don't just raise your price, have 2 or 3 sales meetings, none of them close, and say, this doesn't work. You've got to run it for a long enough period of time and understand that if you're going from $1,500 for an estate plan to $4,500, this is just an example, but if that's what you're doing, imagine how hard it's going to be to talk to somebody face to face where you've been quoting $1,500 yesterday and today you quote them $4,500. I just did this in our tax business. So we presented an opportunity for somebody to come into our tax service at $600 a month. And then they didn't move forward, and we decided to change the business model overnight. And instead, we're providing a more clear value offer and charging $40,000 or $50,000 for the year. So having the same conversation with the same prospect, but 2 weeks later, and we're charging, I don't know, what's 7,200 is right? 50,000 times divided by 7,200, 600 a month is 7,200, right? That's 6.9 times, at 6.9x, right? Like 7 times what we were charging before. Yeah, it felt weird. But you know what? We did it anyway. Why? Well, many reasons, but for primary, because I practice what I preach, right? I can't in good conscience tell you to do something if I'm not willing to do it in my own business, right? But doing the jump, going to that next level right away is going to truncate or shortcut this process. And it's going to set you up for success right away. So don't operate from fear, and instead just try it. Just trust me and try it, right? Okay, so that was flat fee. I'm going to talk about subscription really quick. I'm just going to set the stage for it. I don't have enough time to go into detail on it. But this is best for litigation. This is best for where you would have pushback on flat fee and say, well, it really depends on how much we litigate. It really depends on how long this goes on. It really depends on how much work needs to go into it. And therefore, I can't box all of my clients into one flat fee. Great. First of all, you could have multiple tiers in any level. So you could have, a more expensive tier or less expensive tier depending on the situation. That being said, for litigation matters or anything that takes time over time, or if it's a really big price tag up front and you want to kind of spread it out, what we can do is we can charge a starting fee on the front end, or we don't have to start a charging fee on the front end. We can go straight into monthly payments, and then we charge a certain amount per month. So I'll give you an example. Back to our estate planning practice, right? Like, let's say they're doing also estate administration or estate succession. They're doing probate and that kind of stuff, right? We're taking care of estates after death. There is where even EP attorneys typically struggle with having a flat fee, and often they're charging hourly for that. So what if it typically takes 12 months to do, and you typically, over the course of the entire engagement with the client, might collect a total of $6,000. Well, what if we charge $2,000 up front and then $500 a month? Now we have $2,000 up front, $500 a month. That's $8,000 in total if they go the whole 12 months. But they're motivated. If they're able to make it finish faster, they can make it finish faster, and then they pay less. But if it drags on longer, then you get more. And this is where this really helps in litigation, where if it continues to litigate, it drags on, you can continue to collect. Now, if you're dealing with litigation where, let's say business litigation, where you're talking about much bigger numbers, great. So you're going to be charging $3,000 a month or $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month instead of the 500 example. But there is a setup of this that can make sense for your business, that can solve the problem of the unknowns, but also create something that nobody else can do for your client, which is going to make you somebody that's really desirable to work with. And that is that nobody else is offering this option, which means that they're at the whim of running up the clock, which is a fear that everybody has going into this. So they can't run up the clock here. That's golden, right? It's an insurance policy that you're providing, but guess what? You get to charge insurance. Now, you're not charging insurance, but you get to charge a premium for this pricing structure because you're taking on the risk. But by doing that, you also own control, right? You can delegate conversations to support staff. You can hire lower level attorneys to do some of the prep work and the research and stuff like that, where before you would have to charge less per hour for them based on your model. Now you don't have to worry about that, right? So there are a lot of things that this can unlock. And to bring it all home, pricing is something that is a lever that you can pull in the leverage game. And it is something that most people are undercharging. Most people are packaging their services wrong. Most people do not have this figured out. And it is a great area of opportunity. It's not everybody. Some people have great pricing. Some people have already figured it out. And if you're that person, you know that, and you can just ignore all of this. But maybe this got you thinking about something in a different way. Maybe this allowed you to think of something slightly different than you thought of it before. And when we're looking to get to our next level of growth, whether it's $100,000 a month for you or whether it's $800,000 a month, whatever that next level is for you, if you go through these motions, checking in on your mindset, going to the end of the year, figuring out where you want to be, working your way backwards from there, looking at the pricing that you're charging, understanding that the more I charge per client, the less clients I need to serve to achieve my goal. The less clients I need to serve to achieve my goal, so it helps me with marketing, less expensive marketing. It helps me with sales, less costs for salespeople because they have to sell less people in order to make this work. Less cost on the delivery side, right? We can handle more clients with the same staff we already have. We don't necessarily need to hire, or we need to hire, but we don't have to hire as many people. And so it ultimately drives everything else that you want to do. It helps you with all of those. And that's why I think that pricing is something that you absolutely must look at and probably implement some sort of change in 2026 if you want to achieve your goals. Folks, we have a 2-day workshop. I spoke about it before. But in case you missed it or you weren't paying attention, in this workshop, I take you through what was previously the first 12 weeks of our Law Firm Growth Elite Coaching Program. And we're calling it the $100,000 a month workshop, $100,000 a month workshop. We want you to be able to have $100,000 a month in revenue for your business by the end of the year. And if you join us for 2 days, we'll walk you through the process of navigating this, mapping it out, creating your custom plan for your business. And we're keeping this room small. Okay. We capped it at 20 seats. That's it. I don't want more people in the room, at least not for right now, because I think that there's a tremendous amount of value that you can get by having more attention from myself. So I'm the one facilitating this. I'm not bringing in outside speakers. I'm not that's not what this type of event is. We're going to literally take you through this process of mapping out your future. And when you leave, you're going to have an action plan. You're going to know exactly what you need to do to execute in your business to actually achieve the results that you want in 2026. So if this sounds like something that you're interested in, head on over to profitwithlaw.com/LFG 2026. That's LFG for Law Firm Growth 2026. That's our $100,000 a month workshop. It's a two-day event where you're going to leave with an action plan customized for your firm on exactly what you need to do in order to get to $100,000 a month. And it's entirely possible. Even if you've been trying to do this for 10 years and been unsuccessful, we can still help you to get there in 12 months. I firmly believe in that. We've been able to do it with many, many clients, and we believe we can do that with you too. And all it takes is approaching this from the direction of our system, the way that we do this, and we're going to walk you through that in those 2 days. So we'll be back. There's 3 more episodes to go on how to approach your 2026 to make this your best year ever. I'm going to continue on that journey with you. But for now, make sure you head over to profitwithlaw.com/LFG 2026. Check it out, and we'll see you then. Take care. Bye for now.